So today we're going to drew the basic skirt onto paper. Once we have our skirt checked on the dress form, and we already checked like the waist is on top of the tape and is perfect, that the first dart lands right on the princess or dart placement, and the second dart looks wonderful, and then we measure 1 1/4 in between, that our hip line, it's on the hip line on the dress form or the HBL side seam on side seam, the length is perfect also. You will see my previous video where I have it on the dress form and it looks very good. Okay, so now we're going to drew the basic skirt onto paper. If your paper is rolled like this, or it has a lot of wrinkles, not wrinkles because it's very hard to wrinkle. Once the manila paper wrinkles, it's ruined, so you need another piece. But if it's rolled up like this, because it's very hard to get the roll out of the paper, what you need to do is just take it to the ironing board without no moisture, just the heat. You'll be able to make your paper nice and flat like this. Alrighty, so one of the first things that we need to do, we need to establish the center front, fold line, or we're going to create the grain line, right? So let me grab my yardstick. I thought I was ready, I wasn't. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is, like, it doesn't really matter how the edge of the paper is, because we're going to create a new center front, right? I'm just gonna use my ruler. I'm not gonna measure, I'm just gonna make the line, because I need a line, right? So I'm gonna try to do it a little darker. Maybe this will work, I'm not sure. I usually don't use markers to mark my paper because I like to erase, and hopefully you guys will be able to see the markings on my draped center front skirt. On the video that I did first, I don't think the markings show up very well. I'm sorry about that, but I darken all the points, right? So I'm gonna come and I'm just going to draw a straight line, right? This is just a straight line, that's all it is. I don't know how to make my camera get closer. Well, okay, so maybe that's gonna help. Okay, so now you see all the markings on my skirt, right? So we need seam allowance, and we need seam allowance on the top. So I need to make sure I have plenty of room. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to mark where my hip or my HBL lands on my line, leaving space on the top of the paper for my weight, for my seam allowance, and having my on the bottom for my hem or the sweep or the skirt. Alrighty, so if I come and I check my hip arc, it's 8 3/4 plus half, that makes it 9 1/4. So on my, I'm gonna check again if it's 9 1/4. Yes, perfect. Alrighty. So on my paper, I'm gonna come and mark 9 1/4. Now, you know what? Do it a little longer than what you need, so that way we can connect the front to the back. So I'm gonna go longer, right? Because I wanna make sure I have the front and the back matching. So I'm gonna go on my marking. Remember, I don't push too hard on my ruler because I don't want my ruler to move. So I'm just gliding my marker or my pencil on the line. That's what I'm doing, right? And I'm gonna go twice so I can make a nice and sharp line. So this line, I'm gonna take it all the way back to the other side of the paper. So then I'm gonna mark 9 1/4, 9 1/4, because that's my seam allowance. Oh, 9 1/4. And then at that point, I'm going to I'm gonna come to the bottom, and then I'm gonna do another 9 1/4, because I want the line to be parallel to my center front. And this is my center front, so I don't need seam allowances here. I need seam allowances here on the outside. Okay, so now I'm gonna match the points. I need to be very critical about this, because this is where my skirt needs to be perfect. My pattern needs to be perfect. Alright, so now I have the bottom of my skirt, right? I'm gonna come in and add my seam allowance too. That way I don't have to be thinking about it later. Okay, so now I have seam allowance. This is my HBL, my side seam or sew line, and my cut line, right? So now I'm gonna come and I'm gonna match my center front to my center front of the skirt, right? It needs to match perfect. It needs to match perfect. And then I'm gonna match my side seam on my side seam, right? And it needs to match perfect. I'm going to secure it. I'm gonna put some weight. Just so it won't move. I'm gonna smooth it to the side. Because now I'm gonna start transferring all the points, right, to my skirt. I don't need to have so many lines, like my guideline for my darts. They don't need to be there. And then my new side seam, it does not need to be there either. It's just guidance for us when we're draping. But now when we're about to true it to the paper, we do not need it. What I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna use my pencil. I'm gonna use my pencil just because in case I mess it up, I wanna make sure I can erase it. So what I can do is just mark the ends of the dart with my owl. Right? I can do that. So I'm gonna do that, right? So I'm just gonna mark the end on my darts with my owl. So I know that's the end of the dart. And then for the top of the dart, I'm going to just mark top of the dart, right? Maybe the center, not necessary, but I can do the center. And here we have some options, right? We can use the tracing wheel. Oh, I don't have another one. We can use the tracing wheel. Let me see if I can find the other one. Okay. So we can use a tracing wheel, right? This is a tracing wheel. I like this one because with this one it will perforate the paper and I can really see all the little points. Or we can use something like this. It's a preference, right? It's just a preference, but it's easier this way. Remember that the waistline and the hem do not have a seam allowance. On the side seam, there's seam allowance. And right here in the very corner where the side seam meets the HBL, I wrote here the placement on my very firm curve ruler, the placement where where these land, right there. That way I will mimic the same curvature on the paper, because the paper has to mimic my drape, right? That way it will not change on the dress form. Alrighty. So what we can do is either we can mark very slowly my waist on the paper here, or if we don't have a tracing wheel, we can do it just with a pencil. We can start marking wherever the edge or the waistband is. Is connecting the dots, and you can see the shape there. So the same shape, we're just going to add the seam allowance. Right, so I'm going to continue doing this. And on my side seam, because I already know the number on the ruler, and everybody has their own way of seeing this, right? I like it a little bit more flat, but you can make it more curvy depending on the style that you're going for. I just need to mark it a little bit. So now that I have all my markings, oh, and don't forget to mark the hem of the skirt. That's very important. And then let's see, I already have the hip, I already have my side seam, I already have my darts. I'm gonna remove my waist, and then I'm gonna see, right? Perfect. So I can see all the markings on the paper. So at this point, before I drew the waist, what we need to do is we need to square off. On the center front is 1/2 an inch, and on the center back is 1 whole inch. So you square on your waist, and we're gonna square 1/2 an inch, come close to the smaller line. Because sometimes if we don't do this, then it will be too pointy on the center front. So once you have all the markings, then we're gonna start drawing all the lines and drawing the lines for the darts.